if you can think way back, what is your earliest memory of your encounter with art?
Oh, I actually referenced this in an email to someone just yesterday.
Okay. All right.
That's so funny you asked that.
Well, hello. You're listening to Oh My Omaha, the podcast, where we uncover inspiring things about our community through the stories of inspiring people who call it home. I am Dee Harrell, and this is the creator of Oh My Omaha, the blog, and the blogosphere's friendliest face herself, Kim Reiner.
Hi there.
So today on the podcast, Dee is not here, which is a little sad because this is going to be our final episode of the Oh My Omaha podcast. But I know Dee is going to miss you guys, and it's too bad because this is going to be a great day, a great interview. Excited to have our guests today. They are both curators at the Joslyn Art Museum. Annika Johnson serves as the Stacy and Bruce Simon Curator of Native American Art, and Karin Campbell is the Phil Wilson Curator of Contemporary Art. And I'm so glad you guys made it onto the show.
Thanks for having us.
Fantastic. Why don't you kind of tell the audience what your job is? What does it mean to be a curator?
Oh, sometimes we ask that same question.
Karin, you go first. You've been doing this longer.
Oh, boy. So there are kind of broad ways to talk about what it is to be a curator, but I think it's more helpful maybe in this context to talk specifically about what it is to be a curator at the Joslyn Art Museum. So my purview as curator of contemporary art officially means that everything after 2000, all artists, all work made after 2000 is in my purview. Okay. I should say we're currently down a staff position. We don't have a 20th century curator at the moment. So unofficially, I also oversee 1945 to 2000. Oh, wow. And that break between, what do we consider modern art and what do we consider contemporary art is something that the field has been reconsidering for a number of years. They used to be one in the same position because it made sense to think about things that were made after World War II in the same context as things made whatever today was in that moment. But now we're a quarter of the way into the 21st century, so it's time for a reconsideration. So at the Joslyn, for the first time ever with our new Rhonda and Howard Hawks Pavilion, which I'm sure we'll talk more about, it was our first opportunity to split the 20th century and contemporary collections. So I oversee the permanent collection installation in the Hawks Pavilion for contemporary. I do exhibitions with living artists. I make acquisitions for the collection, research, making catalogs. Annika and I are working on a book together right now, which we can get more into a little later. Yes. So it's a job where you wear a lot of hats. It's a forward-facing job sometimes, and sometimes you're sitting at your desk for hours at a time, clocking away at a computer. So we really kind of accomplish a lot of different kinds of things in a single day.
Yeah. My job is similar and a little bit different from Karin's. I curate the Native American art collection, which at the Joslyn means work created between about 1800 and the present day. So our Native art collection is really expansive. It encompasses all regions of North America. My primary focus is on the 19th century. The galleries that I oversee are in the Joslyn building. So that's the Memorial Building, Landmark Art Deco building. But I also work on temporary exhibitions that are in our Scott Pavilion. Karin and I are co-curating one right now. And occasionally a cap gallery show where I'll work with a contemporary artist. So, in addition to doing things like acquisitions, also caring for the collection and our storage, I do a lot of work with Native communities, so organizations, knowledge bearers, artists, educators, which is one of the great joys of my job.
So when you go and study for a degree, so do you kind of already have an idea of what Native American art or whatever, what you wanted to focus on? Or is it something after you graduate and the job is available sort of thing?
Yeah, and again, there are different answers to that. Annika and I took very different paths in terms of education and work experience to get where we are. I studied art history and political science in my undergrad, and then I knew I eventually wanted to go back to school specifically to be a contemporary curator, which is a kind of educational model that has not been around for that long, which is to say something like 30 or 40 years ago, the first curatorial studies program was founded. And that's specifically for contemporary curators. You don't really find that in other kind of aspects of our field. But I knew really early on that I wanted to work with living artists. There was sort of a formative exhibition in my youth that I saw, and then I had an internship at the Hurrdat Museum, which is the Smithsonian's Modern and Contemporary Museum, that really showed me the dynamism of working with living artists. So going into my education, I was pretty clear what direction I wanted to go in.
And you?
I knew and I didn't know. I started collecting exhibition catalogs when I was like 12, which I was going through my bookshelf recently and found all these catalogs because I grew up going to the Walker Art Center and just like loved going there, but did not think that that could be a day job where you go into the museum every day.
And that was glory years of Walker Art Center too. I mean, they were producing some of the best art exhibition catalogs in the world at that time.
So many good shows. But then I went to arts high school and I was going to be a rock and roll drummer and went to undergrad kicking and screaming. Started taking art history classes, loved it, ended up going to grad school, eventually got my PhD in art history. Native art came a little bit later for me. I was a 19th century specialist looking at like war memorials, images from illustrated newspapers, started looking at ethnographic imagery of Native people, eventually started talking to Native people about what's being depicted in these images, and then transitioned to Native art. Yeah.
So what, if you can think way back, what is your earliest memory of your encounter with art?
Oh, I actually referenced this in an email to someone just yesterday.
Okay. All right.
That's so funny you asked that. I'll tell you my earliest, and then I'll briefly tell you kind of the most formative, because they were both when I was relatively young. So I'm from Pittsburgh originally. Pittsburgh's the birthplace of Andy Warhol. And the Warhol Museum opened when I was about 10 years old. I have a brother who is 10 years older than I am. He was home from college for summer break and must have been babysitting me one day when I didn't have summer camp or whatever. And he said, "Hey, this museum just opened. It looks really cool. Let's go there today. It's too hot to do anything outside." And so he takes me to the Warhol Museum, and I remember just being bowled over as a 10-year-old. There were things my eyes had never seen before, ways of making a portrait that I had never understood. And then he was making, so the thing that really caught me, and this is what I referenced yesterday to a colleague in an email, is he was making what he called his oxidation paintings, where he was using like a copper-rich pigment and then urinating on the canvases, and it creates this really incredible blue pigmentation that you can't really achieve just by splattering paint onto a canvas. And I, the 10-year-old me was like, ew, but also I thought, oh, there's something to this, and then about 5 years later, it was 5 or 6 years later, was the 1999-2000 Carnegie International, which is a big survey of contemporary art that takes place every 3 to 5 years at the Carnegie. And I had gone to the museum to do a school project about for a European history class. And after I'd kind of finished the tasks I needed to write my paper, I went into this exhibition. It was all living artists. And that was the first time that I looked around and thought, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't understand it, but I feel like I can talk about it. How do I develop that language and that knowledge?
And then you figure it out.
Right. And sometimes I still think, how do I develop that language and knowledge?
You go to school and you think you're ready, and then you're not, and you just figure it out.
So true.
I don't remember my first museum visit, but I do remember seeing a Matthew Barney show at the Walker. I was in high school. I don't remember what year it was, maybe 2004. Yeah. And it was like a big immersive exhibition. He's creating these large installations, and he's not an artist that today I particularly have an interest in, but that really opened my eyes to the various ways in which artists can display their art. I'm sure he was very involved with that presentation, but it taught me that art isn't just a painting on the wall, and that as a visitor, I could have a really enjoyable and moving experience walking through the galleries.
That's like baptism by fire, like entree into the world of contemporary art.
I was there with all my cool friends, and you were like, "You don't get it, Mom."
How would you encourage somebody who always feels like art isn't for them, or going to an art museum just doesn't sound like something they would do purposely? Like, how do you explain art to them, and how to at least enjoy their visit when they totally are unfamiliar with artists? Or
start with the cafe. We have a really good new cafe at the museum. an invitation for a cup of coffee. I love walking around the museum with people. You know, I have a lot of friends who don't go to art museums, or, you know, friends of my parents who are in town and don't really do this often, but I just love walking around the galleries with people who maybe don't have expectations necessarily of what they're going to see. I think for the Joslyn, because our general admission is free, I tell people just go for like 45 minutes, you know, even if you have time to kill, or it's a great first date spot, or in the winter when there aren't many places other than the mall to walk around in that get light. Just go and hang out and make it comfortable, and you don't have to see everything and read every label. Just go where you're interested.
Yeah, and I think that the thing I always try to communicate to people who aren't as inculcated into the art world as we are, maybe, or not, let's call it seasoned museum goers. Art is not a single thing. It's not a monolith. And the Joslyn, by virtue of being technically an encyclopedic museum, which means we have in our collections objects from antiquities to present, there really is something for everyone. So, you know, you could list me any of your interests and I could tell you a way that you're going to find that reflected back at you at the Joslyn Art Museum. And we've also been thinking really carefully about how to expand our interpretive offerings. So it's not just labels on the wall. It's not just an audio guide. We have all of these opportunities to find whatever your entry point is, whatever you're bringing to the table, to find that there.
Like studio classes.
Right, exactly.
We have a really robust studio program.
Yeah. And to Annika's point about, I mean, she kind of quipped about the cafe, but that is many people's kind of introduction to the space of an art museum, which can feel very intimidating. It's a big building with lots of serious materials and objects and like people telling you not to touch stuff, right? But like, come and sit and spend some time and just sort of get your body acclimated to being in that space. That's a great first way to do it.
Like, I love taking my kids, like, so for them to get interested in art museums, the artworks room down in the lower level is fantastic.
Yes.
As far as just making it so accessible and exciting, and it covers, it's like you said, it's encyclopedic. It covers all different types of things you might see in the museum, not just one exhibition. So I always encourage people to go check that out as like another. Got kids and got to find something free to do. That's a great space to go to.
I mean, like, we've walked in there. I've walked in there and seen like senior citizens just like hanging out and making pictures. You know, it's just
I play with it stuff too.
Totally. That's because it's fun.
I make stop action video with them.
But for a lot of people, that act of making is the entry point. So if that's the thing that gets you to continue to explore or to think about something that isn't part of your kind of fund of knowledge right now, that's great.
So you two are working on an exhibit together, right? And it's opening in November.
Yes.
Why don't you guys tell us a little about what it's like to co-curate an exhibit and what this one is?
Well, we're actually working on 2 shows together right now. One opens very soon. So the first is Made in the Plains, which opens to the public on June 7th, Saturday, June 7th. And this is an exhibition featuring artists who live and work in Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota. For many, many years, in a different chapter of Joslyn's history, there was an annual exhibition of that type. Actually, sorry, it was a biennial exhibition. And then they kind of moved away from that model, and then there was a curator at the Joslyn in the 70s and 80s who did a series she called the I-80 series, so still thinking about place, but kind of expanding the framework a little bit. And then the museum abandoned that a number of years ago. So in 2015, when we were only 2 curators, we did a show called Art Scene, which focused on artists who live within a 60-mile radius of Omaha. And we wanted to return to this model, especially within our first year of being reopened, but we wanted to be able to get to, for example, the universities in Iowa and to the colleges in the middle of Nebraska that are just beyond that 60-mile radius, or up into the reservations or other parts of South Dakota. And so we have invited 20 artists working across media, painting, photography, ceramics, sculpture, video, installation, you name it, performance. It'll be featured in this exhibition. And that's been a really exciting project to do collaboratively because we all kind of bring our different interests and areas of expertise to the table.
Yeah. Our boss and chief curator at the museum, Taylor Acosta, has also been collaborating with us in the project, and she's a 19th century French art specialist, and it's been so fun to see the ways in which we each connect to works being made right now. And I mean right now, like most work in the show is 2024 or 2025. Yeah, we're excited. The work is so expansive, and as we're putting this together, especially doing studio visits and seeing work in progress, not necessarily the final product, at the outset of the project, we've been so pleased to see all of the connections across works of art.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the summer. And for more information on that and to keep up with programs, et cetera, folks can visit the website, joslyn.org. It's a much easier to navigate website than it was in its previous incarnation. And then this November, we open Dripping Earth, Chinupa Hanska Luger. And this is a project Annika and I started working on really at the end of 2023, like fall of 2023.
Yeah.
Chinupa is Mandan, Hidatsa, Arikara, and Lakota. And Annika was aware of his work in kind of one sphere, and I was aware of his work in another sphere, and we caught wind from a mutual colleague that Chinupa was quite interested in the Joslyn, and particularly in our collection of Carl Bodmer watercolors and prints, which are a sort of a cornerstone of the American collection. So we reached out. We had, I think, a Zoom studio visit with him initially. And at first we were talking about doing a very small exhibition in our Riley Contemporary Artist Project Gallery, which is in the Scott Pavilion. It's a space we opened in 2014, dedicated exclusively to living artists, first space in the museum's history like that. So Chinupa came out to visit in January of 2024. We spent a lot of time with him.
He is a fire hose of ideas.
It sounds like there's a story.
Yeah.
We very quickly realized that a 400 square foot gallery space could not contain the ideas, the works that he wanted to create.
Literally or figuratively, could not contain.
Exactly. It was really fun. I mean, it's hard to get to know somebody over Zoom, so it's nice to have that time to spend with an artist. And he's really invested in Native communities. He wants to engage community in his practice. He's very collaborative. So we went up to the Omaha reservation, visited with the high school there in Macy. We also were hosted by Bluebird Cultural Initiative. It's a Native-run nonprofit based in Omaha, and they had just a great community meal for us. And Chinupa's really relaxed. He loves talking to people, and that aspect of getting to know who we are, who Nebraska is, was a big part of the project.
And he's a trained ceramicist. The show, and we can get more into the details of the show in a moment, but he works across media now, but his training is in ceramics. And so one of the things he really wanted to do was visit the studio of June Kaneko. June has this kiln that is the size of like my first apartment. And so he's working on this really impressive scale, and you've seen these sculptures all around Omaha and beyond. And so part of the seeds of needing to go beyond the Cap Gallery, go beyond 450 square feet, was that Chinupa started thinking big in his head about the kinds of work he could make, and he had just purchased a new kiln himself that it was allowing him to push the boundaries of scale a bit. And so when we were driving back from Macy, Annika was driving and Chinupa was in the front seat, and I said, so what do you think about something maybe a little bigger than the Cap Gallery? And his initial response was, I don't think so. And so we kind of, and it was like pretty clear. It's like I have a kind of focused idea, and we said, I don't know about that, but we kind of eventually sort of started to talk him into it, and then we had a follow-up Zoom a few days after he left, and his collaborator and partner and studio manager Ginger was in the background. She called out, "He's gonna do it! I just have to finish convincing him." So from there, the project really grew by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and I think it's one of his biggest solo shows to date.
Certainly his most ambitious.
Mm-hmm. It's a big moment in his career. He was just featured in the Times Square Midnight Moment series. So at midnight every day in April, all of the screens in Times Square will have these giant buffalo dancers. He's wearing buffalo dancer regalia made out of Afghan blankets. It's very colorful, and they just take over Manhattan. And it is so incredible.
Yeah, Midnight Moments is a really great program. I don't remember how many years they've been doing it for, but as Annika said, it's every single night at 11:57 p.m., all of the screens in Times Square, or something like 96% of them, enough for it to feel like all of them, are given over to an artist project, and each month features a different artist that they've commissioned to do something. Cool. It's a really amazing experience if you find yourself in the middle of Times Square at midnight.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of, that wasn't planned. We didn't know that was going to happen as part of the project, but it does feature these Medegadi, these buffalo dancers, which are all going to be on view. The regalia will be on view in the show. And one of the purposes of these dancers is to call the bison back. And Tanupa, is very knowledgeable about the history of bison in the Great Plains, the near decimation of the bison, but also how do we as a society start to recognize their importance to the prairies, to the ecosystem, to people, and work together to start to do that. So it also ended up feeling like Omaha was a really natural place for this exhibition to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when he thinks through things like landscape in Buffalo, he talks about the fact that kinship extends beyond human relationships, and we have to seek out kinship with things beyond ourselves and forces beyond ourselves, and that sort of resides at the center of this project.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a really fun show, too.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about it in very serious terms. Yeah. It's going to be dope.
It's going to be very immersive. There's video projection, there's audio, there's like super colorful regalia, monumental sculpture. You're looking high, you're looking low. Scale is very skewed in the show. So he's really great at world building. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he definitely sets the visitor in a particular place.
Yeah, it'll be very theatrical in a way.
Fantastic. Yeah. Throughout your careers, is there any particular exhibition that you're like, that was the perfect one that I create? Like, is there one in your mind that you're like, I'm very proud of? This is the proudest.
Dripping Earth, Tanupa Hanskeluger.
It will happen this fall.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, that is true. I've done a lot of exhibitions at the Joslyn, and there've been a lot of moments that I'm quite proud of. Exhibitions prior to my time there that, I'm proud of for other reasons. But this feels like the culmination of many years of building up to something.
Mm-hmm. And Karen's a really good collaborator, and I'm going to toot your horn a little bit. Mm-hmm. Karen is so good at working with contemporary artists and just making them feel comfortable in the space, but also understand the space and understand museum visitors and kind of navigate all of these different aspects of creating a show.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So it's been wonderful for me to participate in this process because I don't always work with contemporary artists, and this show is coming on the heels of the reinstallation of our permanent collections. So for me, I was working with Native art and non-Native art, from 1800 to about 1950. We did integrate some projects, some collaborations in there with regional community groups. But this is a totally different process, and it's really fun. And I think as curators, we're always very excited about whatever we're working on now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, it really is to kind of like fill your entire psyche.
Yes.
It's my turn. I bet you didn't know this was going to turn into a love fest, but I couldn't work on this exhibition without Annika. The depth of knowledge and like how fluid she is in speaking about Indigenous communities and their lifeways, and her understanding of the history is so rich. It brings a layer to this project that simply wouldn't be there in the same way if you weren't.
Dream team.
You heard it here first.
So, kind of still related. I recently read a book called Get the Picture. Have you guys heard of that book or read about it?
I don't think so.
And
no.
it's written by a journalist who wanted to know about the art world and like kind of infiltrated the art world as far as like different roles. So she kind of tried to work with curators and try to understand what makes art, especially kind of modern art. And I wish you guys had read it because you should check it out though, because it's interesting. She talks about she worked as a assistant with an artist and tried to get into galleries in New York, and interesting. Ask you guys questions about it, but okay, never mind.
You can ask us questions about it even if we haven't read it.
No, that's all right. That's all right. So outside of working at Joslyn, what do you guys do? What do you do for fun in Omaha? You're not from Omaha originally, so but you've been here long enough to feel like kind of call it home now, maybe. But what's Omaha like for you guys?
I like to sit outside and like just be in the world. I mean, Omaha's a place where I was thinking about this actually just a couple days ago because I live right by Lake Cunningham, and so I frequent that park. I think it's one of Omaha's greatest resources. And I was just reminded that Omaha is one of those cities where the minute, even if you're just talking about it being nice outside, everyone floods the streets. You just you have to get out of your house. Yeah. I went to college in New England where we had 6 feet of snow on the ground from October to April, all the time. And that's not an exaggeration. So it was a different kind of spring awakening. But it's just there's something about, it's kind of a siloed city, right? There are discrete neighborhoods and it's a driving city depending on where you live, but for the most part, it's a driving city. So there's something about being able to be beyond your home site and just be out in the world with people and out in nature is really fulfilling.
And it's a 5-minute drive to get out into nature.
Totally. I mean, because we were talking about the interstate system before we started recording, but I mean, that's totally worth its weight in gold.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking a year or two ago, as soon as the first nice day in April or something, we went out to Platte River State Park.
Oh, yeah.
And there's that little waterfall, and people are walking in the water as if it's summer.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful out.
Yeah.
Not a leaf on a tree yet.
Yeah.
It's yep.
Yeah, different definitions
the sun
of
comes
spring
out.
and summer here.
Yay.
Yeah, so being outside, I really like to go out to eat. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but the restaurant scene when I moved here was very different than it is today. That was 13 years ago, and we've just seen such incredible development in the kind of cuisines represented and the boundaries that chefs in the city are willing to push.
What are some of your favorites?
Got a lot of favorites. So Boiler Room is a perennial favorite, but I also went on my first date with my partner there, so it has an extra special little thing in my heart. I love to go to Yoshitomo, and then his omakase is an incredible experience. Ota next door. Avoli is always hits every single time. Okurant hits every single time. I really like drinks too, so I love places like Tiny House and Fizzy's and Mercury. I will go to Mercury anytime it's an opportunity. So
have you gone during their Christmas?
Oh yeah.
So much fun.
I need to go. I haven't been there.
You been to Mercury yet?
There are so many places. So I moved here 6 years ago, but
COVID times.
5 months before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I feel my experience of Omaha has been just this increasing, stepping out into the world. Because after, we closed a little bit during COVID, and then things were weird, and then we closed the museum for 2 years for expansion. And in that time, the Jean Leahy Mall was totally redone. There's all of this amazing waterfront space. So much has grown and happened in the 6 years that I've been here, but I feel I need to get out more.
Yeah.
my jam is Barrett's, which is on
you do love
Leavenworth.
Barrett's?
I love Barrett's.
Different experience.
It's a different experience, but they have the best BLT, and it's one of those places where they just know that that's what I want.
Yeah.
When I go, it's ultimate comfort.
You smell the bacon
food.
frying the minute you walk in the door.
Yes,
That's
and there's
love.
nothing special about it.
Yeah.
It's just done really perfectly.
We need to go to Mercury after work someday.
Yeah. Let's step it up for me.
Absolutely. Here. How about outside of Omaha? Do you guys do any road tripping or?
Annika loves a road trip. This doesn't road trip.
Okay. You're from the Twin Cities, so I'm you might have a little bit Midwest mentality of
everything
drive anywhere.
feels kind of close. Yeah, I drive to Santa Fe every year. There's an annual artist market called Indian Market that takes place in August, and it's a 14-hour drive. Sometimes I'll just do it in one day. Get through a whole audio
sociopathic behavior.
I know. It's so Midwestern.
Yeah.
I'll bring my dog with me. It's great. So I drive to Santa Fe, but I end up in South Dakota and North Dakota quite a bit. I've been driving up to the Fort Berthold Reservation, which is in western North Dakota, and it's kind of a long drive. And then once you get there, you're whoa, this is great. We're here to do some awesome stuff. But, even the nearby locations, like you mentioned, Platte River, I just hopping in the car and getting out.
I do. I love the Sandhills. It's the first time I visited the Sandhills. I was I can't believe this is in Nebraska. Where am I? It just it feels so otherworldly. But I prefer to get on a plane if I have to go somewhere far away. And my friends and family are primarily on the East Coast, so I spend a lot of time going back there.
Do you have to travel a lot for work?
Yeah, we do. I went on 3 work trips in the month of April. Annika went on 2, so that's a little unusual, but yeah, we do. I mean, it's really hard to do our jobs without keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening in our field, and you just have to go someplace else for that sometimes, whether it's to exhibition openings, to make studio visits with artists, just to meet other curatorial colleagues, to go to conferences, to go to art fairs. There's great value. So speaking of Chinupo, our last trip was to Santa Fe. He lives in the hills right outside of Santa Fe. And we have a monthly call with him, and we're kind of in constant contact over email. But the amount that we can accomplish in like 10 hours in the studio is incomparable, you know? So yeah, I would say have to travel is not right. We get to travel is the thing. And we, you know, sometimes it's like just a trip to New York, but then sometimes you get to go to these spectacular places that you think I probably wouldn't have had a chance to visit this place if it weren't for working in this field.
Sharjah is that place for me. We had an exhibition in the Cap Gallery on an artist named Wendy Red Star. And she and I worked together. She created this really amazing installation that's now up in the Hawks Pavilion. But for the Sharjah Biennial, which is in the UAE, they asked to borrow it. And I never thought, like, I am not just a Native American art specialist, but like Great Plains, like South Dakota, Nebraska area, you know, never thought I would end up in the UAE. But there I was installing this project. It's very cool.
Yeah. Mine was an airplane hangar at the Zurich International Airport at 5 a.m. when I was couriering a painting back from the Kunstmuseum Basel. And I had to get on a truck at literally 4 a.m. from Basel to Zurich and then stand in this airplane hangar with all of these forklifts flying around. And all I'm doing is watching one crate that has a painting in it being like, oh my gosh, I'm so far away. You know, just like being so nervous about this, all this was going on. But yeah, there's just these moments you look around and you think, how did I get here? What led me here?
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So we ask our guests the same question at the end of every episode. And I'm curious to hear your answers. Where do you find inspiration in Omaha?
Are you ready? Other than Annika's office?
We share an office.
Yeah.
So. I am guessing most people say this, but it's the people that make a place. I mean, Omaha, like, it's some really great eccentrics here. I feel like it's just a place that, you know, everybody has their own bubble, but I encounter people from so many different walks of life here, and everybody is like proud to be from here, really supportive of the arts, no matter where they're coming from. And I like meeting those people.
Yeah. It's one of those places, and I felt this immediately upon coming here, not even when I moved here, but when I came to interview, that you can have any sort of idea or dream, and there's going to be someone who's going to help you pursue that. And that obviously, like, that comes with a culture of philanthropy that is greater than any place I've ever lived, and which is excellent when you work in a nonprofit. Right. That's to me, that's an amazing feat and something that the city should hold really dear.
You know, it's grassrootsy.
It is.
Like there are, I'm just thinking, as you were saying that, I'm thinking of all of the Native-run organizations where it's like, we're going to start a nonprofit to support this thing that's really beautiful and important to the community, and like, boom. They did it.
You'll find
it's inspiring.
People, you'll find people that will
exactly.
It.
But it's that pride of place that really, I think, resonates through everything that happens in this city, which is why we're able to do big projects too. It's why the Leahy Mall project got done. It's why the Joslyn was able to build a new museum. It's why the library is building a new headquarters. I mean, all of these things come from that same sort of philosophy or belief in place.
It's like we love the place, but we always know it could be better. Well, let's keep building on what we got. Absolutely. Is there anything that you guys wanted to touch upon that you didn't get to mention, or any shout outs or plugs?
The Joslyn Art Museum is now fully open. If you haven't been yet, we reopened in September. The only day we're closed is Mondays. Otherwise, we've got 2 days with evening hours, so we're open till 8 p.m. on Wednesdays and Thursdays. There are constantly programs and kind of activations in the building. Again, everything can be found on joslyn.org. Anything else that I've missed about forthcoming shows that we should plug?
There's so much, you know, in addition to the major temporary exhibitions, we're always rotating works on view in the permanent collection galleries. So we say they're permanent collections, but not static. Mm-hmm. So things are always changing, and we have a great mobile guide too. We're adding content. It's audio visual.
I meant to ask you is that how do you decide like when to rotate or move some stuff out or change
Sometimes
things
we
up?
don't decide. Sometimes
Okay.
the registrars who oversee collection care decide.
Okay.
So like works on paper, for example,
Okay.
can only be on view for certain periods of time.
that
There
makes
are other materials that are sensitive. I just thought of something else I was going to say. Oh, so temporary exhibitions, we do ticket for our big temporary exhibitions. However, now with the Hawks Pavilion, we have 3 temporary exhibition spaces, 4 actually, if you count J8.
Yeah.
So there are 4 exhibition spaces that are totally free and rotating on a regular basis, in addition to permanent collection rotations. So even if you don't, you feel like you're not really interested in the temporary exhibition, or maybe you don't want to spend the money right now, there's still so much to see.
And I saw that sometimes the you have a monthly like Artastic Saturday, and is that when the ticketed exhibition is free also? There's a couple times where you can go in for free.
There's
like,
also
see
free
Thursday night.
Thursday evenings.
I'm gonna mess it up, so I'm not gonna say.
Okay.
But that's a plug to go to the website.
Visit
Yes, there are 3
www.joslyn.org.
days where like you can get a peek of it before it's gone.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And the show that's currently on view this is the final weekend for it. So we have through end of day Sunday to get to the museum for this round of exhibition.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you,
Thanks
Kim.
for having us.
Thanks for listening to Oh My Omaha, the podcast. We want to thank our guest, Hurrdat Media, all of you for your support, and the Omaha community at large.
So from D and I, keep on exploring.